Good evening and welcome to Action News 27. I'm your host, Chandler Wyndham. Tonight, March Madness. How is your bracket holding up? And young drivers. Why are younger drivers getting on the roads causing more accidents? We'll have that and more later. But first, I'm going to turn it over to our resident weatherman, Chandler Wyndham, for a special story. Thank you, Chandler. Earlier this week, several tornadoes ravaged through our state. This has caused me to look into the changing Texas climate and why it's being hit by worse weather way more frequently. Fires, hurricanes, freezes, and even tornadoes seem to be hitting Texas a bit more than we are normally used to. Hurricane season, for instance, is fast approaching. The last several hurricane seasons have been longer with bigger impacts. As many of you may remember, back in 2016, Hurricane Harvey slammed the Texas Gulf Coast, being one of the biggest hurricanes to ever hit Texas. And this is probably even the biggest since the Galveston hurricane of 1900. Though it hit Texas 5.5 years ago, many Texans are still seeing its aftermath and cleaning up the community. Harvey is just one of what they call super hurricanes to hit the United States Gulf Coast in the last 10 years. Every hurricane season since has included at least a few of these super hurricanes. Luckily, most of these storms avoid hitting Texas head-on thanks to the currents of the Gulf of Mexico. Unfortunately, however, almost every hurricane to hit Louisiana and Mississippi are likely to still bring plenty of rain to Texas, which causes flooding and structural damage. You may ask, what exactly is making these storms larger and stronger? First, we need to look at how hurricanes are formed. Hurricanes typically start from the northwest coast of Africa. They start as just small bits of rain. They're not hurricanes quite yet, but as they go farther into the ocean, they grow from the warm water, and the currents of the ocean causes the system to rotate, forming the shape of the hurricane. They're just a normal rainstorm. Then it develops into a tropical depression, followed by a tropical storm, and then eventually a Category 1 hurricane. Hurricanes are classified from Category 1 to Category 5, with 5 being the biggest and most severe. Hurricanes are caused, what's making these hurricanes get worse and worse every year is the warmer ocean temperatures, which are feeding the hurricanes and helping them grow significantly. Most storms, however, do not even become a hurricane until they're really in the Gulf of Mexico, until they're rather close to landfall. In fact, I believe Harvey didn't become a Category 5 till within 24 hours of hitting land. It seems more and more hurricanes are being classified as Category 5 every year. Most storms Judging by the lack of changes to slow global warming and try to stop it, it means hurricane seasons in the future are only going to get worse for the time being. Hurricanes are not the only weather phenomena that impact Texas in the last 10 years. Wildfires ravage across central and north Texas all the time. Even though a lot of Texas is coastal, many areas in Texas have a dry climate. All it takes is a single spark to start a wildfire. After a fire is started, it takes wind to spread quickly. All it takes is a gust of wind. The most memorable fire that scorched Texas recently was the Bastrop Fire of 2011. The fire lasted 55 days and burned 32,000 acres of land and destroyed 1,600 homes. More than 10 years later, the damage and scorched trees can still be seen while driving through Bastrop. In the first 3 months of 2022 alone, several wildfires have burned across the state, including one that started in Bastrop State Park back in January. Earlier this month, there were several fires about 60 miles west of Fort Worth. The fires will continue to be a huge problem for the foreseeable future. Some of the weather phenomena in Texas in recent years have even caused U.S. senators to flee the country. Of course, I am talking about the freeze of 2021 that left millions of Texans freezing without power. But what caused the freeze to be so devastating? Texas was simply unprepared for the cold weather, as it's rare for many parts of Texas to even reach as cold as it did. The power grid of Texas was not ready to handle its spike in demand, power, and sudden drop in supply due to the grid and its sources of power getting frozen. For decades to come, Texans will be paying off the billions of dollars in electricity and gas debts incurred during the storm, as well as damages to property. The freeze of 2021 is potentially the most costly storm to hit Texas in history, surpassing the aforementioned Hurricane Harvey. Thanks to global warming, the polar vortex has been thrown off its axis, causing it to dip quite a bit farther south than it should normally be at. This is why Texas got hit by the freeze in the first place, and it appears it will remain this way for years to come. To prevent it from being as devastating means politicians need to step up and pressure the companies that run the grid to improve conditions to be better prepared for cold weather in the future. That's just about all the time I have. Back over to you, Chandler. Thank you, Chandler. If you or anyone you know has been impacted by the storms and need assistance, you can go to FEMA.gov or dial 211 in need of shelter, food, or water. March Madness continues tonight with the men's and women's Sweet 16. For the men's tournament, 2 Texas colleges made it into the Sweet 16. They both played last night. Houston advanced to the lead 8 after knocking off Arizona in a game. And then Texas Tech lost to Duke. Our personal favorite, Texas Tech, lost to Duke in a thriller in what is Coach K's final run as coach on his retirement tour. Houston will play Villanova, and Arkansas will play Duke on Saturday to try to make the Final Four. There are still games today for the Sweet 16, including the Kansas one to watch. That's going to be a good one. And then on the women's side, out of all the Texas colleges, UT is the only team that still remains. They will play Ohio State tonight for a spot in the Elite 8. And that's all the time we have today. Stay tuned tomorrow as we talk about youth drivers and their impact on the community. I'm Chandler Wyndham. Stay classy, Texas.